When I first came up here, I had in mind that it would be fun or interesting to tell some big Indian stories. But the best story happened last night, so in a sense, I guess I should start with that. And it's not my story, and I can't do it justice. I know I can't. But, you know, Michael put it in perfect terms in a way. Shiva arrived last night in the form of a black bear that smelled all the food that was being eaten here yesterday. Even though it was put away, it knew it was there, and it decided, while everyone was sitting in the dining area, to break down the door to go after the food. And that created a series of events that went on for most of the night. It was one of the great stories of people barricading themselves. First they tried to barricade the door, the bear, to keep it out, but it didn't work. And it broke down the door, and everybody, I guess, tried to go to their rooms, but they were afraid to be in their own rooms. They had these little latches on their doors. And knew after it broke down the side door, it wouldn't hold. Shiva can be very insistent, and it was going to go after what it wanted to go after, which was luckily not you guys, but all of the potato chips and whatever else it could find in bags. It turned out not to like bagels, as far as I could tell when we looked at the floor this morning. The bags were kind of open a little bit, and one bagel had a tiny little bite out of it, but the rest of it was not to its liking. It loved desserts. It took every dessert in the house. So unfortunately, Tara ran out to the store to buy some desserts, but all they had is like little Danish and things. We have a few of those, so those of you who are needing sugar this afternoon, it's a limited supply. But it didn't eat all the fruit, and it made an unbelievable mess of the kitchen. I mean, everywhere you looked there was grain and tea bags everywhere, and it was a major major mess. And and everybody in the middle of the night decided it might be good to all sleep in the same room. Not sure what that would do in terms of protection, but that would be a good way to spend the night. And if anyone had to go to the bathroom, they had to guard each other.
We did that together.
Yeah, you did it together. So, I love this story. I'm so grateful nobody got hurt. I'm so grateful. Yep. Well, everybody's been laughing about it today, and everyone has their own story about it, and this will be woven into the tapestry of the big Indian stories. And truly, it's a great story because it's what we were talking about yesterday, this strangeness of this place, and that it has such a powerful Shiva-like energy, this energy that is potentially, in fact, ultimately very destructive, but not destructive in the sense that it is aimless destruction. It's about freeing. It's about liberation. It's about mostly getting rid of ego. And there's no way to look at ego more completely and more directly than to be in the face of terror or death, if you will. If you want to know where your ego is, what it is, try that. It's right there. Your ego rises up and goes, not me. And it gets pretty horrified, and people behave in very odd ways when ego gets challenged like that. And what I was so moved by in the stories that everybody told me is that everybody was laughing. Everyone here was laughing. And they were laughing about the potential of dying in Big India, And partly I think that was a little bit about yesterday, because there was such a sweetness about the day. There was such an incredible kind of joy that was coming out in this collective experience of being together and acknowledging what this reality is, what this place is, what the challenges are of being here. This is not an easy place to live. Of course, you don't expect a bear, but you do expect that things will come up within you that you will have to examine and look at and ultimately free yourself from. And the truth is, you can't free yourself from stuff you don't see or don't know. You cannot get above something that's hiding and lurking in the basement and you are not looking at. That stuff just stays buried until that door opens. And for most people, that door opens late in the game. You know, as you get older, and again, I talked about this yesterday, there's this 4 o'clock in the morning thing that happens with people. The basement door opens and this thing comes up. 4 o'clock, really? Well, there you go. 4 o'clock in the morning.
She woke us up 4:30. I woke the beer broke in at 4. And then Mike took us to the bathroom together.
Well, okay. Well, I'm telling you, that's when it wakes up, and it comes out of the basement or out of the backyard, and it comes in, and there you are facing this thing. And this thing challenges you. It challenges you in the deepest possible way. It challenges what you're about. It challenges your heroism. It challenges your strength. It challenges your resolve. And for most people, it's not something you're ready to deal with at 4 in the morning because your defenses are down. You know, all day long, even though you may not know it, you're walking around presenting a sense of self, presenting an image, an idea of who you are. You're walking about embodying your story. I am this, whatever you want to call it. I am a joyous, beautiful person. I am a sad, victimized person. You know, we all have the story that we walk around with. You know, I'm spiritual, I'm not spiritual. You know, and that story during the day is like, there it is. It's right there, and you're selling it. You're selling it all day long, whether you're conscious of it or not. In the middle of the night, there's none of that's going on. And so when this force comes out and reveals itself, and it does, you have no defenses. You're just there completely victimized by this. You know, you can try putting up tables against the door, but it just breaks down the tables. And it confronts you, and it confronts you in the most powerful way. It basically shows you undefended, and you undefended is a very weak element. You know, there's not much you can draw upon. Everything that you think of as supporting you and putting you forth in the world is not available. And so all you have is this childlike fear, this primal fear of not being protected. And then it does something which I find really, really interesting. It tears you down. This is not a physical thing. It tears you down from the inside out. It sees and knows all your weaknesses. It knows all of your doubts. It knows everything you're afraid of, everything you've done wrong, everything that you're embarrassed about. It knows everything. There's nothing hidden from this place. And it brings it up. And it will make you feel like you're the worst human who ever lived. To the point that you've got to say at some point, but it's not true. It's not true. Yes, I was like that. Yes, that happened. But it's not like you're telling me. It's not that dark. It's not that big. And this voice comes up inside you, and it's a really interesting voice because it's not your ego. There's another voice that comes up and says, whoa, no, I may not be perfect on some inner level, but I'm not what you're saying I am. And why am I not that? Because I loved people. Because I actually was good in my life. I did good things for people. I cared about people. You find these little tiny grace notes about who you were, and you start to dig into them and say, please come forth and present that part of me to this dark force. And God willing, you have some of those. Most of us do. Most of us do. Most of us, going back down, have moments of being truly kind people. We really did embrace elements of life in a beautiful way. We really did love. And those little tiny specks of goodness become very big. And you find them as a place of refuge. You can go back and go, I'm not what you're saying I am. But not everybody has that. A lot of people have no way of denying the voice of the Shiva energy. It comes in and it just grinds you to a pulp. It grinds and it grinds and it grinds, and you will be in such a state of suffering and with no way out. You just see no way to defend yourself against this cruel judge. And you know, in every kind of mythic literature and spiritual literature, you always stand before the great magistrate, and it basically goes, you are not worthy. You did not live appropriate life. And it's like, whoa, first of all, you're scared to death that this is actually happening, because in the middle of the night or in the last milliseconds of your life or after you're dead, you truly do face this thing. And you go, every Sunday school image of your childhood, which is what most people have to draw on in terms of what the inner biblical universe looks like, it all comes right into play. If you're a Buddhist, if you're a Judeo-Christian, Muslim, there is this judgment. And that judgment is you. And we'll call it Shiva, but it's really you, because you really look at how you failed. You had this life, whatever you want to call this, whatever this thing is, you had it. Or you're in it as we speak. And mostly you have been deeply and profoundly unaware of what it is. Mostly it's just, let's go to Burger Chef, and I hope the fries are okay this time, and can I eat a regular diet? Can I have a Diet Coke? I know it's not good for me. I'm trying to just describe the mundane dullness of most life, and it's not mundane and it's not dull. But if your whole life ends up like that, if your whole life ends up with you doing nothing but Sudoku all the time, and I use that image a lot, if you just do Sudoku or crossword puzzles, you haven't begun to deal with the magnitude of being alive, of being in this world. It's just like you were here, but you weren't here. You did everything to kind of wall it out. And then this thing comes up and it judges you. And this thing is within you, and we call it Shiva. There is a Brahma thing that gives you life. There is this Vishnu power that preserves your life. And then there is this thing at the end, which starts to break through, because it's always been there, and it destroys you. It takes you out. And most of us, at that point, are defenseless, because we haven't had a life of consciousness. We haven't had a life that understood what life was, or is. And very few people are prepared for the fact that it's eternal. You may have heard that, but very few people are prepared for the fact that when it's over, it's not over. It's still there, and it's there in this vast bigness of what you will perceive of as judgment. And you will go, oh, I wasted an entire life. I wasted an entire opportunity. I never once was aware of where I was, or what I saw, or what was happening. I was totally consumed with Sudoku. And you'll go, what was that, and why? And you won't even be in an intellectual kind of battle with it. You will just feel shamed. You will feel shamed in huge ways, because you had this and you did that. It's not enough. You have a life, and what you call a spiritual life. What is a spiritual life, Honestly, most people don't understand what a spiritual life is. A lot of people, if I asked you, would say it's about doing good deeds. It's about being in touch with something bigger than just you. It makes you compassionate. It makes you a nice person. It's wonderful. But then you discover, this voice tells you, every good deed you did was to serve your ego. Every bit of kindness you showed was to get payback. If I do this, good karma comes. If I'm a wonderful human being, then I go to heaven. Reward, reward, reward. Who gets the reward? Your mind and your ego get the reward, but that's what they're going to kill. They're getting rid of your mind and your ego. So there you are saying, I did all these good things, but what you did is you built up this incredibly dense, rich, ego-minded thing that is the very thing that has to go. So all of your spiritual life, in a way, created the problems, or many of the problems, because you thought you did a good thing, and you didn't do anything but serve the ego. Egolessness, which is the joy of finally letting go of this thing, is to live the true life of being, just being. And what happens when the ego mind starts to disintegrate, or you start to work it through a spiritual practice, you begin to let it go. It's not to own the gift of having let it go. Oh, look what I let go. That's not the goal. The goal is let it go, and there'll be less and less to let go of. And you keep washing it away and washing it away. You do this work. You do this work that Rudy gave us. You take a deep breath. You ask inside for help to surrender, and you feel this thing open, and you feel stuff fall away. You just let it go, and you let it go, and you let it go. And that's the real essence of a spiritual life. That there's less of you and more of what? This. Because as your ego falls away, what's left standing? Everything that was always standing already. It's still there, but you're not, it's not about you. It's about it. And it is you. I mean, that's the craziness of it. You are not, the little ego is such a separate, minor, little tiny thing, and it isn't you. Why are you so invested in this little tiny ego thing when you're the vastness of being? You are the eternal, absolute truth of existence. That's who you are. And you're sitting here going, is that true? I don't think that's true. I mean, I'd like to be that, but I don't. Nothing. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. You are this, and you're convinced that you're this tiny little nothing. Why? Well, because we're programmed that way. How do you get out of that program? You undo it. How do you undo it? You have a practice, a spiritual practice. You sit, you take a breath, you ask for help to surrender, and you spend 50 years doing that. Rudy said that you spend a lifetime doing it. It doesn't happen in a week. I mean, it can. I mean, part of the class yesterday was I was trying to persuade you, you could do it now. Do it right now. Give it up. But it is a clinging thing, this ego. And when the bear breaks through the door, what we cling together. There's so much clinging, you know, and there's fear of this dark thing, and it could eat us and consume us in that moment, you know, and I love that you laugh at it because it really, I think laughter is one of the best things ever in dealing with this force, because Shiva doesn't know what to do with that, and laughter.
You would have been laughing.
What?
If you'd been there, you would have been
I was laughing all morning because it's the greatest story ever. You guys were facing death and you were laughing. And I'm telling you.
making jokes about
And
it.
yes, and, you know, look, not everybody does that, and there are certain circumstances where that may not happen. You know, but when you're barricaded in a room with a little latch, you know, and you feel vaguely
We closed
protected.
the window too.
You what?
We closed the window.
You close the windows, so that's smart. Yeah, once it's broken through the door, those windows will be very protective. You know. But look, this force breaks through. This force has an extraordinary dynamic, and what it's going to do is get rid of you. And as some of us may find at that moment that laughter is the most extraordinary way to greet it. I don't think many people are truly capable of that, and I think it could, once they're gnawing on your arm, laughter may not be quite the response. Could be. That would be amazing to me. But what comes through finally is they are going to dismember and dismantle everything that you are, except the very essence of what you are, which cannot be touched. Once they get rid of ego mind, which unfortunately for most of us is embodied in this flesh, once they get rid of ego mind, this remains. And once your flesh is gone, and we're going to have to find this out as a fact when it happens, so I'm just projecting it because everyone in spiritual circles tells you this is true. When the body is gone, you are still there. My experience in spiritual practice and spiritual living is that that's true. But I could be wrong, but I've always said, if I'm wrong and there's nothing at the end of this, if it's just total blackout, great. Great. Then there's nothing to worry about. Just gone. It's over. But if there is something there, then how do you greet that? Well, I'll tell you, as I've said many times, you don't want to have to confront all of this in the last moments or seconds of your life. You just don't want to do it then. If it takes me 50 years to break the ego down, how do you do it in the last milliseconds of your life? Well, you don't. You don't. And that's where the image of heaven and hell occurs. Because trying to break it down at that point needs something you call time. And you no longer have time. And it needs space, and you no longer have space. But what you have is timeless emptiness. And in that timeless emptiness, this whole thing will begin to happen. Because as you are disintegrated there, without time, without space, you are in a place of kind of burning, deep burning. They burn it out. And there you are, watching it happen, because what else can you do? You're just watching this thing. It's horrible. I mean, it's horrible. And I don't want to scare people into a spiritual life, which people have done for eons. You don't want to be scared into it. But, you know, that's, I believe, what happens. The other option, which is a great option if it happens, is the universe just goes, we love you anyway. You know, for however you lived your life and however much ignorance you're bringing to the table, and whatever your life was, we love you. And that it could be that. And I would say, great. That would be wonderful. But I do know, and I said this yesterday, so I know these talks are going to overlap in some ways, but why not do it now? Why not have this life of awakening? Why not have this life of letting go of all of your stuff that's going to get taken away anyway? You know, it's so interesting. I keep asking this question. Why did Blanche and I spend our entire life acquiring stuff when suddenly retirement happens and you can't support all you got? It's too much stuff. In our case, it was 2 houses full of furniture, full of stuff, books beyond belief, all of this stuff, and you have to start giving it away. And I kept asking, why did we get all this stuff? What was going on? I don't understand it. But of course, it's the nature of human beings to acquire, to have a big, full life. Somewhere in the middle of this life, you have all of your stuff, which may be a lot or not so much, but whatever it is, ultimately, it has to go. And you have to let it go, and you discover, of course, in letting it go, how attached you are. I can't let go of that book. I love that book. You know? And that becomes, I got to hold on to that book, or that painting. I remember when we bought that painting, and how wonderful it was, and that wonderful day we had, and all that stuff that went on. We can't let go of that painting. And you start to go, I can't let go of anything. I can't let go of my life. Everything in my life I love. But it doesn't care. It doesn't care how much you love it. It says, you're done. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. And the clinging part of all of this is amazing. I don't care how spiritual you are. You know, you don't want to let go of the Buddha that Rudy gave me. You know, my most prized possession is a Buddha that's about this big, and it's broken. And you've all heard this story 1,000 times. When I went into Rudy's store for the first time and I wanted to buy a Buddha, I had $3. And I look in this case of little Buddhas because I knew at least that's about all I could afford. And the one I was drawn to was the little broken Buddha. And Rudy came over to me at some point and said, can I help you? I said, yes, I'd like to buy a Buddha. He said, how much do you have to spend? I said, $3. He didn't even gulp. You know, because I think I would have gulped. But he just said, well, here. And he picks out the broken Buddha. And I go, yeah, I really like that, but it's broken. And he just clearly says, look for perfection in yourself, not in external objects. And I said to him, I said, that's a great sales pitch. And I bought the little Buddha, and it traveled with me all over the world. And I can probably let go of almost everything except people I love and my Buddha. My little Buddha. And yet they're going to take it. They being all of this. It's going to dissolve into infinite, or let's just say infinity. It's hard. It's hard. And you all know how hard it is because when it's facing you and they say, throw it in the fire, you have to do it. You have to do it. But that fire is the fire of liberation. Liberation. You hear it all the time. You want to be liberated from all the things that own you. And none of us are good at it. I don't care how beautiful you are, how wonderful you are, how spiritual you are, there will be that little Buddha that you can't let go of. And that's the one you got to let go of. It's what we're all facing, every one of us. And this process, this sitting for 50 years, which for me is going to come soon. It'll be a 50-year anniversary. This sitting for 50 years is an extraordinary thing because You sit through rain, you sit through snow, you sit through sunshine, spring, fall, it all comes and goes, and you have woven into the fabric and tapestry of your life this sitting. So if someone were to take a lifelong picture of you, a huge part of it, other than sleeping and eating, would be this. And what's going on in this? What's going on when you're doing this? Ideally, nothing. Ideally, nothing. Just presence. Just... Some people call it worship. Some people call it prayer. But that's almost too active. It's much less than that. It's appreciation, wonder, awe, gratitude, acknowledgement, comfort, stillness, clarity, wisdom, joy. In the middle of all that, there's darkness. You learn to go, it's okay. Yes, there's darkness. Fear, okay. Everything happens when you sit still. Everything. The only moment that we are all going to have to go through that's going to be tricky is the last one. The extremity. Nobody wants to go through that. All those images. Nobody wants to do it, and most of us will not do it joyfully. We will all be pretty squandered by that point, extremely unsettled, not happy. The last vestiges of ego, mind, body are going to be yelling like mad, and even the great saints who've gone through it probably were crying out. It's okay. That's what we'll do. But at that moment, you're letting go of the last breath as opposed to a life of unconsciousness. You're letting go of this tiny little last figment instead of everyone you ever knew and cared about and hated and wanted to be with and don't want to be with and all that other stuff that fills your brain. Downloading all of that, even on a computer, takes weeks to get rid of as much stuff as we've collected. So that's why it's good to do it every day. Download, export, whatever it is. Get rid of all of this stuff. And what happens is you have this huge empty hard drive that just sits around and, in our case, witnesses truth, witnesses beauty, witnesses the amazement of the world. And you start to see it in everything and in everyone. You actually get to look at each other and see beauty and wonder and go, I love that person. I love that person. You just keep doing that. I love that person. And I get to do that right here, and you cannot imagine the love that is felt from this space for each being that it is aware of. It loves you. And I can say I love you because I feel very connected to the self. So I would say the self loves you. The self is not my self. It's not my possession. It's the self. And it is therefore your self. The self loves you. So if you really let go, and you keep letting go of you, what you discover is the self, which you have often called yourself. But now you begin to go, wow, it's not mine at all. It's the self. And it's the self, not like something you read in Freudian analysis, or Jungian theory. It's the self. And it is, what is it? The self is, words I love are totality, the absolute. That's the self. And where is it? Where is it not? That's really the answer. Where is it not? Show me where it is not. The self is all there is, and all there is you. And where does all that self come from? Well, I don't know if we have the answer, but people who sit really quietly and deeply for a lot of time move through a kind of series of layers of manifested sensibilities, and you arrive at something that's empty, that's completely still, that has no form, no shape, no quality, it's just empty. And yet all of this arises from that. And when you arrive at that place, as you get close to it, it's ecstatically beautiful. It's full of bliss and joy and like, wow, 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 wow. Tears come. You just have this amazing sense of having been so lucky to see this truth that is you. And then it gets quieter and quieter, emptier and emptier, and there's nothing. There's nothing. And you have to be careful because you're going to want to hold on to the bliss. You're going to go, I don't want to let go of that. But you have to. It's not a problem. Let go and be your true self, which is nothing. Rudy said it all the time. We become nothing. But becoming nothing is not an idea. It's not something you imagine. It really happens. You become the thing you've always been. Nothing. And it's perfect. It's perfect. And it's what you have always been. When I spoke yesterday about we're perfect as we are, I kept wanting to come back and do part 2 of that. Because everyone who sits here and goes, that can't be true, on one level you're right. If you are a raging alcoholic, if you are a child molester, if you weigh 590 pounds, whatever these problems are that people have, and I tell you, you're perfect as you are, of course you have a right to turn on me and go, that's bullshit. However, having turned on the television and watched this extreme weight loss program, what's it called? It's like America's Biggest Loser, I don't know. It comes on when we're trying to watch the news and then I can't turn it off. It's like, wow, this person was 400 pounds and now they're like this big and they're so sexy and so beautiful and so happy and so relieved and so like, thank you, endlessly to everyone who's around and appreciating them and to the people who led them through all the work that it took them to lose 300 and whatever pounds, and you look at them and you go, that's it. That's the work. You are perfect, but this hugeness of you was a signal that you had work to do. And then you do the work, you exercise, and you go to the gym, and you hate everybody, and you're miserable, and you can't believe you can do this, and then you get on the scale, and you go, ooh, and I only have 200 pounds to go. And it's like an extraordinary thing, because there you are watching this TV show and going, you can do it. They're trying not to do it, but you're rooting for them to do it because it's so beautiful, and they do it. And you understand the perfection of being 540 pounds is that you have enormous inspiration to get rid of it. Enormous. So you're perfect, yes, but if you're perfect and you stay 540 pounds, will that free you? It could. But what will it free you to? It frees you to stop eating. It frees you to thinking that you can just be this and it's okay. It frees you to say, I need to do something about what I am. I always tell people that the voice in your brain is the chatter that goes on all the time. The deepening of that is the voice that says, I have to get my act together. I don't know if you all know where that voice comes from. It's from right here. Of course, this is your voice. This is the seat of ego. It's also your throat chakra. Your throat chakra is the voice that goes, I'm this and that, I'm this and that, all day long, all night long, honestly. And then it finally gets to a point where it's deeper and it says, I need to change. That's spiritual work. When you go into your meditation and you work through the chakras, you'll actually arrive at this place and you'll go deeper. And as you go deeper, that voice of transformation comes through you. If you go really deep here, it becomes prayer. Please, God, help me. Help me to do the thing I need to do. Help me. So that comes from the same place. The deeper you go into the chakras, the more they support this transformative thing that's going on in each of you, or can go on. And if you give yourself over to that, what happens is this nothingness that we are, this perfect nothingness, brings this perfection up through the system and transforms you, and you become increasingly aware of your perfection. Can you become aware of your perfection when you're an alcoholic and you're drinking all day long and you're passing out? And yes, you could, but most alcoholics, I think, become aware of a need when they've been in the gutter for a day. That awful, awful kind of behavior is the thing that saves them. Because it's so extreme and it's so negative and so powerful that only by becoming aware of it and saying, I need to change, do you go to AA. And the people I know who are in Alcoholics Anonymous are among the most remarkable people, because they go, I have a propensity to this kind of behavior, and I am going to take a community and bring it into play to help me get past this. And they do. You know, and I can't tell you how much I love these people. You know, they're people who take charge and transform themselves are part of the perfecting process. It's necessary. It's an ingredient in growing, an ingredient in becoming the perfect thing, a being that you are. Finding your path to this is what life is about. Meditation is one of the paths. It's one way of getting there. And it's absolutely, in my mind, effective. Because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if Rudy didn't tell me one day, very casually in a way, and you have to do this for the rest of your life. And I heard that when he said it, and I didn't flinch. I really didn't flinch. I went, I'm there, I'm game. Because I knew that this was important. And Rudy knew it was important. This process that we're undergoing, this slow transformative thing, is so meaningful. And this allowing Shiva to come in at 4 o'clock in the morning to break down the door is essential. You have to let that happen, because that's how you confront reality. And it's real. It's real. I have friends who just did a 2-week retreat in Peru, an ayahuasca retreat. And they're students of mine. And, you know, Rudy used to say, don't do LSD. He said, if you do LSD, it's fine, don't come here. You know, I'd never known what to make of that exactly, because LSD is what brought me to all of this. You know, I got so blown away by it in the 60s, you know, by just one experience, that it set me on this path. So I hate to tell people not to do something that was so meaningful to me, so, and I don't want to say that. But I understand why he said, don't come here. Because ultimately, the way I always put it, you've got to take off the training wheels. You've got to do this yourself. You can't do it with some other substance. You have to do this work. But it shows you, there it is. And I had a major overdose. I won't go into my LSD trip, but I will tell you this. These friends who did ayahuasca came away from it. It's a 12-day ceremony. You go there, you have to give up all your drugs before you go, meaning every medical drug and everything else, for 2 weeks before you go. Can't do any while you're there, and for 2 weeks after. So it's a real purifying thing. You can't get to this place and you can't drive there. You have to take an airplane and a boat up the Amazon and then hike into the jungle. And it's extraordinary. And the journey for everyone who's there is unbelievably painful, because it brings you face to face with what walked in the door of the house last night. Only it's coming from within you. It's this 4 o'clock in the morning Shiva that comes in and says, you're full of shit, and if you don't get your act together, you're going to die full of shit. That's what ayahuasca does. To me, from what I understand of it, it's like my LSD trip, because it was like a major overdose and huge amount of transformative energy. And they do it 7 times in the 12-day period, and it's retching, literal retching of letting stuff out, and then trying to be available to these voices that come in and just tell them they got to change. They got work to do. It's important. This is not casual. This is the stuff of why you're born. And I'm not trying to tell you guys to go out and do ayahuasca. I'm really not. And I think under the wrong circumstances, it's probably a really bad idea. But what I loved about the journey that was described to me was how changed people became. And one woman said, it was so much more powerful than all the years of meditation that they've been doing. And that really got to me, because I keep recommending meditation. You know, I don't recommend the power through it. On the other hand, I'm no longer not recommending it. I mean, I do think for some people, these ceremonial devices are exactly what's needed. And for many people doing meditation, and I've watched them because I've taught this for many years, some people don't grow. Some people use meditation as a way of saying, I'm a good person, I'm a nice guy, you know, I'm really this, you know, I'm a meditator. But that's just another identity. It's the biggest problem. And all I'm looking for is to finally break through to people and go use this to get deep. Use this to get to this place in yourself where you are empty, where you are nothing. And if you're going to a place that says you are something, you're in the wrong place. Meditation's not for that. It's not to get somewhere that you feel good about yourself. It's to get to the place where you realize, I've got junk in here, and it's got to get thrown out. I've got to clear the attic. I've got to clear the basement. I've got to start clearing out the living room. You've got to get through all of this stuff, because that's what this is about. And if you're not doing that, what you're doing is simply lounging back in the chair and going, oh, I'm a meditator. Oh, I'm so pure, I'm so simple. I'm such a good person. And I would walk around Omega, you know, not that far from here, you know, when we used to live there. And I would walk around and I wanted to throw up, and I looked at these people. I'm telling you, I'm so smart, I'm so good, I'm such a wonderful person, you know, and everything's lovely, it's all beautiful. Bullshit! It's not true, it's not like that. You can't pretend it into being. You can't. It has to arise within you in the same way it's arising in every tree that's growing outside this classroom. You know, this place is vibrant with growth and energy and being, you know, lovely and terrifying, everything going on. I had a guy tell me, I went to Biosphere once in Arizona, and one of the guys who created it was there, and he said, if you want to see competition and warfare and battles, look at trees. I went, what? He said, the battle for space, for ground, for water, the root systems are strangling each other to get theirs. I never imagined that. To me, trees were beatific, it's beautiful. No, it doesn't work that way. If we start having less and less water, we're all going to be fighting each other for a drink. Or, I'll give my drink to my granddaughter. That's what I would do. And I'm totally willing, at this point, to give my drinks to you. Why? I mean, I'm not there in that spot. It all sounds good. But I really believe that you are not other than I, that we are one entity, and as a community, we will serve each other. But I don't want to become defending of this community to fight off the next tribe, the other community. And that's what happens. The ego really does come up and goes I, we, in a way that perpetuates this endless stuff we watch on the news every night. And it's very hard to break out of that. The only way to break out of it is to be willing to die. The willing to give yourself over to the other, which is not the other, it's you. But it's not, there's no boundaries to that you. You know, I love you guys enormously because you're here and because we're sharing this space. But I love people down the road and, you know, I mean, out there. And I don't love them like, oh, come, I love you. They're us. We're one thing. We're one thing. That's all we are. And it's impossible to grasp that. You can't intellectualize that and go, oh, we're all one. It becomes a knowledge that fills you with its truth. There's no hippie-ish, embrace of an idea. It's a fact. It's a total fact. And that fact transforms you. And it's a fact that if you don't know it, trust me, learn it. Figure it out. How do you figure it out? How do you know that we're all one? Get rid of you. Just get rid of you. And you will find it. You are the one. The one. You are the one we have been waiting for. You are the one. And I don't mean, Michael, Jackie. Get rid of the name, get rid of the sense of I am the one, and be the one we've been waiting for. And you are that. That's what I kept saying yesterday. You are that. You're nothing but that. Except the mind is so determined to make you separate from the one, or to be the one in the egoistic sense, that you can't find the truth, the beauty, the joy of being not you, but this. So we're all on that ride, every one of us. And you get to the end of your life, and if this great Shiva, which destroys you, brings you into the presence of that which judges you, and it will, because Shiva is that force, it will judge you. Let it do it now. Don't wait. Don't wait. And if it isn't going to be like that, I'm telling you, you'll have a much sweeter life. You will. You'll have a much greater life if you just do it now. And what does that mean? Welcome it. Sit still. Trust me, if you sit still long enough, hard enough, deep enough, and I'm not trying to get you to go into a cave or do 12-hour meditations, but if you sit still for half an hour a day and you just do this seriously, you will be brought into deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper parts of your psyche. All of these extreme activities, a 500-day retreat, or a Buddha did, living in the woods, trying to use all these austerities, thank you, to find himself. What did he come away with? He came away with the middle path. The middle path. That's all that's wanted. You don't need extremes. Sit for half an hour a day, and you will have what you're looking for. You will find it. It will be there. But do it because it's essential. And every one of you who's here, every one of you who keeps coming to this, there's something driving you. There's something wonderful driving you. Pay attention to that. Listen to that voice. It brought you to Big Indian. It brought you into Black Bear Land. It brought you into a place where the ego and the Shiva forces are announcing themselves, and you didn't come here by chance. You didn't come here like suddenly, oh, I'm here. You got in a car, you made a choice, you made a decision. Where did that come from? What is that in you? And I know it in all of you because you've been doing this for a long time. That force in you is from the one that you are. That's where it comes from. And the fact that you're paying attention to that, the fact that you're letting it put you in a car, the fact that it let me fly 3,000 miles to be here, that force is the animating force of your freedom and liberation, and it's already at work. You're all worthy, you're all extraordinarily wonderful people. You laugh in the face of death. What more can you ask for in this world? Do your work, do this work, and it takes you where you need to go. And even if it doesn't, when the time comes to be there, you'll just go, the end.
I just want to share something with everybody here, and then maybe if everybody shares it with someone else in the world, it may make a big difference. In terms of the unity of everything, after I started sitting with you in classes, I was driving up to class one day, and some guy cut me off or something like that. Something triggered this. And then all of a sudden I said, that's me on a different day. And it just, that's kind of how I walk on.
Yeah, no, beautiful. No, I mean, that's, every one of us is one with the totality, and every one of us could kill people, maim, torture. Trust me, every instinct that humanity brings out is in you. It may not be activated, but it could be.
Right.
People in other lands find that they can do horrific things, and these are probably good people. Suddenly they're cutting off their neighbors' heads. Where does that come from? It comes from within. We are light and dark. We are the blend. We are those forces at work, and you've got to know that and accept it, and ultimately forgive it. Like you did. I mean, your moment with that guy on the road is exactly what spiritual work, in a way, is about. Just that awareness, that too is I. That too is what I am. If everybody did that, those dark forces, I think, would be channeled differently. They would play differently in the world. I don't know exactly what that would be. I would love to see it. But a lot of it, I know in my own writing, a lot of dark stuff comes up in my writing. I remember when I was writing Jacob's Ladder, it was a very dark movie. And Blanche came in the room and she was standing over me while I was writing. She said, "What is that?" Like, "Woof, what are you doing?" I said, I don't know. I didn't know where it was coming from. But it was being turned into something that had artful aspect. And ultimately it became, which I think is what happens, the journey through darkness leads to light. Can. And when it does that, you thank the darkness. When the journey through darkness ends in darkness, you kind of don't want to forgive the artist. I don't. I go, why did you do that to me? What was the purpose of that? Did it make you a lot of money? Great. So you go home and you can build a house based on hurting people and creating sadness and misery and fear. I don't want that in my life. And I think as you evolve, you get to the point where you realize the darkness is real, but it's like what you do with my granddaughter. You have to help her through her darkness, and but you can't deny her darkness because it's real for her. She deals with these things called gunks, I think they're called. Chunks. She deals with chunks. I don't know what chunks are exactly, but they terrify her. And they come out of the darkness, and we talk about them, and we relate to them. We have a dialogue about the chunks. And it's really fascinating because there's a way to begin to give perspective and all that. But the worst thing is when you deny it, or just say, don't worry about that. Just put them under the bed. That's where they'll live for a long, long time. So, no, this is, the human journey is to, I don't know what it is, but I know I'm glad I'm on it. And it has a richness of light and dark, yin and yang, and it's an amazing thing. And we learn how to live that through finding somebody like Rudy in our life, a teacher who starts to put it in perspective, and then we realize it's not for Rudy to put it in perspective, it's for us to put it in perspective. And all he's doing is giving us the tools, and then we try to keep it going. And someone like John and Capella, they take this center where people come and they keep it alive so people can keep coming and learning this thing. And now look, we're all here. We're all here because for 30 years they sat on this place and they kept it going. This is an enormous gift, to be able to keep something like this going so that it can have a renaissance or a rebirth, which is what's happening right at this moment. We're all here, and everyone here is dealing with this possibility of reemergence in a big way. It's really beautiful. I'm the last person who would ever have wanted it. Coming to Big Indian for me was like, oh my God, please, not that. But here I am, so grateful to be here. And grateful, I'm sorry I missed the bear, honestly. I would have enjoyed that, but I got to do the cleanup part.
Come back tonight.
Yeah, come back, yeah, right. Well, actually I've had my own bears, but I have to say, when the universe provides you with a structure and a teacher and a concept that leads to something called liberation, and you find that, say thank you. Say thank you as deeply as you can. John, Capella, thank you. Yes, Julia.
I think we should have a statue of the Bear Commission and give a potato chips.
You know, I mean, the way this is going, that could happen. This is going to be kind of a spiritual garden, is the way people have described it. One of the things I love about what's happening to Big Indian is that it's going to become a place for many spiritual forms. You know, not this form. Because there's no, why should there be this form? You know, the worst thing is everybody, I was saying this to someone earlier today, you know, of all the competitors I've ever seen, in academics and in spiritual life, that's where you meet them worst. You know, and having spiritual teachers who have the answer are the most competitive and the most certain of their truth, and they are terrible to be around. What I think is to have a place where every form can find its celebration, you know, is wonderful. Or have people just come and sit in front of Shiva or Rudy's Samadhi shrine, or, I mean, all these new sort of statues that are going to be in place here. People can just come and bathe in that. It's not exactly the way I would have done it, I don't think, but it's the way it's happening. And there's wonderful forces at work, and I'm saying, beautiful, let's do this. Let's make this happen. And so what's happening here, as you can tell, is this is now turning into stories. Yeah. Lots and lots of stories. And stories are what we build our life on, you know, and everyone's going to have different versions, and I can hear everyone is trying to defend their particular attitude to what happened, and it's like war stories, you know, they become canonized in a way, and everybody locks into the story, and what we're missing, and I don't want to miss, is the essential point, that something of what we called Shiva nature, and Michael was right to name it that, occurred here. And everyone responded to it in their own way, and everybody has their own dynamic. You know, it didn't erupt into, you know, life and death situation ultimately, so I'm grateful for that. Everybody learned a lesson. It's a great story to add to the canon of stories of Big Indian. And I think the important thing is to know that stories can limit us in many ways. Try to take the story to the largest aspect that you can, which is, you know, there is Brahma that creates, Vishnu that preserves, Shiva that destroys, and we're all part of that drama. All of us, in every way imaginable, we're part of it. A little bit of that story got told yesterday. It's a great story. I want to keep it as a great story, but I don't think we need to keep it going right now. So thank you. I appreciate the fact that I woke up this morning and walked in here, and the laughter that was filling this place was amazing. And that's what I want to walk away with. Is that enough? Thank you.